r/relationship stories. My M35 girlfriend, F38, admitted she had been having an affair with her ex before we dated. So just to give some background to this, I've been dating my girlfriend, let's call her Gail, for about 4 months. It has been so amazing, and we were already talking about building a future together. We just click on every level. I was genuinely the happiest I've been in years. Her best friends are a couple, let's call them Andy and Alice. They've been together 4 years. Now, when we first started dating, Gail told me that her and Andy had dated for a couple of years 8 years ago. No big deal, she was upfront about it. He seemed like a good guy, so I had no issue. I asked if there had ever been anything between them since then, as you know how these things go, and Gail said no, there's been absolutely nothing, he's just my best friend. So again, all good. Fast forward to the other night, and me and Gail are having a light-hearted conversation around less than good things we may have done in her past. Then she comes out with, worst thing I've done was sleep with Andy behind Alice's back. I was a little bit stunned, given Alice and Andy didn't start dating until 4 years after. At first she said it was just a one-time drunken thing, but I could tell there was more. So after probing, she admitted they'd basically been sleeping together for the entire 8-year period, and she claims only stopped when she met me. It just feels so messed up. Alice has no idea at all. At first Gail was saying she can understand at all why I'm so upset, as it was in the past and doesn't affect our relationship. I pointed out it does, as now I know, and I have to be complicit in a lie to Alice. Also, that Gail has been lying to me about the nature of her relationship with Andy for months. She even said if I asked her to choose, she'd pick her friendship with him. Which hurt, as I didn't even ask. She gets now why I'm angry, and has offered to cut ties with them. But I'm really not that guy. I don't want to tell her to do that. It'll only make her miserable long term. So here are my options as I see them. Agree to let Gail cut out Alice and Andy, just carry on the relationship and become part of the lie to Alice. Encourage Gail to tell Alice the truth, although it may do more harm than good. End the relationship. I was so happy and so excited. Now she just seems like a different person. Now for the next story. My 48F husband, 51M, openly brags to me and the kids about how many women throw themselves at him. My husband and I are expats in a country where the average household considers themselves lucky to make $2,000 to $3,000 a year. For the purpose of not giving too much identifying information out, I will be referring to the country as Country E. 2.5 years ago, my husband, who works in finance, was promoted to a position in which he could finally have the compensation, authority, and projects that he always dreamed of. The downside was that the position would be in the company's headquarters in another country, required us to move away from our family and friends, but I was so excited for my husband, and our kids, 15F and 10M, were so happy about experiencing another culture, as well as supporting their dad, that we urged my husband to take the position. Because they were telling my husband they wanted to see him there as soon as possible, we agreed that he would go settle in and we would fly over around 2 months later. It seems that the moment his plane took off towards Country E marked the beginning of the end of all his feelings of respect and appreciation for me and the kids. After just 2 months apart, I could sense a drastic change in my husband. He went from calling me and the kids every day to every other day, and then reducing communication to texts. At first I thought he was just busy settling in, but the night before we were to fly out, he video chatted us and the kids asked him why he seemed disappointed that we were coming. He said that they were imagining things and it was just how his face looked on camera. As we settled into our new home, he shot us pretty resentful looks and continuously snapped at me not to touch this or that. Like most expats, we lived in a home that was miles grander and showier than we could ever get back home, and with a lot of stuff like a company car and housekeeping services paid for by the company. My husband had money to burn and started having ridiculously high expectations about how we dressed and looked. He bought himself loads of designer watches with his fellow corporate masters of the universe friends and spent lavishly at restaurants and bars on the company tab. He also invested quite a bit of our money in real estate here, since the government is pushing for foreign investors to invest, even adopting more liberal outward rhetoric in order to be appealing to the West. The country we live in has extreme wealth disparities, most of it unfortunately not held by locals. There is a center city area where all the basically high-end stores, hotels, clubs, and restaurants, as well as homes are in the country. And despite the fact that this country is technically conservative, Escorting is rampant and is an outgrowth of the generally desperate economic straits of families and the fact that it is obvious who has money and therefore where to go and who to target. Escorts are apparent basically everywhere in the area we live where there are restaurants or bars or entertainment. When men see dressed-up local women in pairs roaming around an establishment, they assume they are escorts, and 90% of the time they are right. An expat friend once asked a woman who approached him in a bar what she did, and she said it was obvious what she did. My husband started criticizing my appearance a lot, and when we'd go out he'd ask if I ever considered wearing my hair like woman A, B, or C. Or we'll go out to eat as a family and he will ignore what the kids are saying and just stare at different women. When his friends come over, my husband always brags, in front of me, about the women that approach him. Not just at bars, but he also brags about how local women who work in the office with him are also exceptionally engaging. He got very aggressive in bed and said that he wanted to choke me and urinate on me. When we tried out BDSM, he pulled my hair hard enough to draw blood, and when I said I didn't want to do it anymore, he started screaming that a bunch of women who look exactly like his type would be eager to do it all and more for less than I spend on dinner. My daughter found a bunch of contacts on his phone that blew up his phone with flirty messages on WhatsApp, and instead of at least pretending to be ashamed for our daughter's sake, he went the "your dad is still attractive" angle, but botched it terribly when it turned into a diatribe about how he had to give out the number to one woman because she looked close to tears when he tried to pull away. While most women are respectful when a man is with his wife and her family, sometimes it happens where at restaurants and hotels where my husband is a regular for dinner, women who I assume are also regulars will disregard my presence and give me a scornful once-over. When we are out as a family and my husband sees a woman give his attire an approving once-over, he will smile flirtatiously back and seem to bask in the glow and not pay attention to me or the kids. I have been to support groups and have been told to let it wear off because many other wives have experienced their husbands being drunk on attention. But my husband seems to be getting more and more obsessed about the attention. My son is young, but he has gone from happy-go-lucky to glaring at his father and whoever he is smiling at. My husband and I have tried to communicate, but everything turns into my fault. I do not appreciate his contributions enough when I disagree with him, saying the kids don't need to learn how to do laundry because the housekeeper will do it for them. I do not appreciate him when I refuse to have sex for the third time in a night. I do not appreciate him when I move the furniture from how he organized it or when I disagree with him on anything. I started tracking our banking information and found out that he made numerous large withdrawals. He denied vehemently that he was seeing escorts and said I seemed jealous and had something against people who escort. I told him that to the contrary, that I feel bad for people who need to put their lives and healths at risk like this and do not have access to any forms of government assistance. We had a big fight that night and I went to stay with a friend for the night to cool off. When I came back home, he glared at me and said, "Oh, you're back. What if I don't want you here anymore?" I do not know what to do. My support group keeps telling me that he will get off his power trip, but if I leave him I will likely lose any assets he has here. My kids obviously still have school and love their classmates. I need any advice about how to save my marriage or how to get my husband to stop thinking that I am not enough for him when I haven't changed from when we were not expats. Yet while he respected and appreciated me back home, he scorns me here. Now for the next story. Found out fiancé had a previous FWB relationship with a current friend and lied about it. I recently found out my fiancé had sex with a longtime friend of hers. I know the guy, but not quite on a friendship level. The man she had sex with is married. She had sex with him a few times a few years ago after a breakup, but stopped when she began dating her last boyfriend. They had sex a couple more times after her and her last boyfriend before we got together. So basically 2-time period a few years apart where they had sex a couple times each. She said she was extremely lonely and it wasn't even for the sex. That was just to be held and feel wanted. She said she knew it was fake and she didn't mean anything to him. She just wanted to feel desired. This all ended a couple months before we started dating. She said she felt ashamed after the last time and told him she wasn't doing that again, but remained friends with him. Before I found out, I asked her directly was there anything between them ever, and she said no. They did very occasionally message each other during our relationship, but purely normal friend conversation. Nothing inappropriate. They have been friends for 10 years. I stumbled across some old messages between them on an old tablet that talked about them meeting for sex. I confronted her about lying about it and she said she did so because she knew I would be disgusted by it and she was ashamed. She immediately blocked and cut off all contact with that guy and said she had never thought of him in a romantic way. It was purely because she felt so alone and wanted to be held. I asked her why she had continued contact with him since we were together, and she said it was only because he was one of her very few friends and they had been friends for so long. She didn't hesitate in the least to block him and promised she would never have any contact with him, apologized profusely and said she wouldn't lie again. Do you think I have anything to be worried about? Now for the next story. My 28F partner, 28M, has not been taking COVID precautions seriously despite my medical condition, which makes me high risk. I am struggling to accept his apology and am unsure how to move on from this. Account is a throwaway cause my partner uses Reddit and I don't want them seeing this. Background: my 28F partner, 28M, and I have been together for nearly 9 years. We have been living together for 7 of those years and have a registered de facto relationship. My partner has always been a great person. He is loving, kind, and has always done his best to look out for me. As an example, he has taken up a larger responsibility financially so that I can pursue my master's. Note: I take care of our home and chores in return, and has always voiced his support for me to further my education. Now, we have had our share of fights, which couple doesn't? But we always discussed things through and never went to bed angry or upset with the other. That is, until tonight, when I gave him the silent treatment and left our bedroom to go sleep on the couch. The issue: I am immunocompromised. Most of my family has had immune system related issues, and I found out about 5 to 6 years ago through a routine checkup that I was showing indications of an immune related disorder. I was then told by my doctor to have blood tests every 3 months to make sure it does not progress to anything worse, and I have been making sure to stay on top of it. Obviously, my partner knows of this. He was even looking after me for a while when I had a 2-week-long stay in the hospital a couple of years ago due to an immune system flare-up. I have since gotten a little better but have been advised by my doctor to take very strong precautions with COVID: double mask, face shield, no going out unless needed. My partner knows this too, as I've spent countless hours in the last 2 years being anxious about catching COVID, as there is a high possibility I might die from it. With lockdown having lifted and restrictions easing where we are at, my partner has started going back to work. But with cases rising again, seriously almost everyone I know is a close contact or has COVID, I have asked him to take extra precautions at work, especially since he has been informing me that he has workmates testing positive nearly every day. Specifically, I have asked him to use a fitted mask, face shield, and to practice social distancing. He promised me he was being careful, and I had no reason to doubt him, since he also voiced that he preferred to not go outside for anything unnecessary and did not require me to remind him to wear a mask, wash his hands, etc. Then today happened. My partner returned from work late and seemed a little tired, so I offered to make him a snack and asked if he wanted to sit down and watch his favorite show. He was very excited at this, and I began getting it ready while he threw out his mask and washed up. Then he decided to tell me about his day at work and pulled out his phone to show me some pictures he took with work friends today. As he was scrolling through, I noticed that almost all the pictures were of him and his friends maskless, standing next to each other and laughing. I then looked at him and said, "We agreed to be careful. I've cried to you so much recently about how scared I am, and you promised we'd take precautions, but you couldn't even do the simplest thing and wear your mask? You had to take it off for pictures? I can't believe you'd even show this to me." I then stopped preparing his snack and walked to my computer in the other room to just get away from him. He sat in the living room for a while, but he eventually came to me, gave me a hug and apologized, but I was very curt with him and did not accept his apology. We then got ready for bed, but as I was about to climb in, I just felt so much disappointment and anger that I left the room to go sleep on the couch. I feel horrible right now for basically giving him the silent treatment and for letting him go to bed sad, especially after he had a long day at work and seemed excited to spend time with me tonight, but I feel like he has disregarded something that I am deeply anxious and afraid of. I also feel like I can't trust him, as I now wonder if he has not been safe all the other times he has gone out alone. I wake up every day worried that we might catch COVID even if we are being careful, and to find out he hasn't been makes me feel like he doesn't care about my life. I know that sounds dramatic, but my doctor's advice and the fact that our hospital system is so overloaded makes my fear feel very real and grounded. Part of me wants to move on from this, as I truly love him and he has never done anything that has given me cause to doubt him before, but I'm not sure how to talk to him without blowing up after he's spent years knowing my medical history. TLDR, I could die if I catch COVID and my partner has not been taking COVID precautions seriously despite knowing my medical history. Well, that's all for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, have an amazing day.